Okay, problem 14.2a gives us a bunch of information. Gives us all these expenses and all these costs, and it tells us to consider these costs and figure out if they should be a product cost, a period cost, direct material, direct labor, overhead, selling. But you really don't need any of this. This is all just to play with your head. It's all garbage. Okay? In the world of accounting or the world of education, it's called heuristic distractors. In the world you and I live in, it's called bull. Let's just take a look at advertising expense. Does advertising expense ever add value to the product? No. So it's got to be a period cost. What is the purpose of advertising? Is it to make the product or to sell the product? Sell the product. We're done with that one. Office equipment. Office equipment. Period cost, product cost. Office equipment. Depreciation, office equipment, it's a period cost because it doesn't have anything to do with making a particular item. It's running the company. It's an entity sustaining event. And it's certainly nothing to do with selling. It's general and administrative. The next one they're asking us about is depreciation expense, selling equipment. Well, you hear selling, you know right away it's period cost. And I'm just taking a wild guess here, but selling expense seems to me like it would be a selling expense. Just a guess. Now, depreciation expense, factory equipment. Is the factory equipment used to make stuff? Yes, that's a product cost. And as a product cost, is it material, labor, or overhead? Well, you're not cutting up the equipment and adding it to the product, so it can't be direct materials, and it can't be labor because you can't sell people. So it has to be factory overhead. Okay, factory supervision. This is the guy that stands behind you who can't do your job but tells you how to. That's overhead. And that's a product cost. In that one particular case, overhead is underfoot, but that's my own personal opinion. Okay, factory supplies used. Supplies used in the factory. That's overhead. And it's a product cost. Now, supplies used are small incidental costs that you want to make sure that you keep track of, but you can't take the time to record them for each unit. Imagine you're making chairs and each rung of the chair has 2 drops of glue on it. Over the period of a year, you may use $500 worth of glue, but each chair probably uses 1/3 of a cent. So you want to keep track of it in total, not individually. Okay, factory utilities, same deal. You can't charge to the manufacturer of an automobile the cost to heat the building, but you have to pay for it. So that's an overhead cost. And because it's factory utilities, it is a product cost. Now, direct labor is clearly a product cost because the labor is used to make the product. And it almost begs saying that that's obviously direct labor. Now, indirect labor. This is a product cost, but this is sort of like the relief supervisor. This is the maintenance people for the building. This is the janitorial staff. These are all vital jobs for making the product, but their labor is not seen in the product. So that makes them overhead. Miscellaneous production cost, the minute you see miscellaneous, it's overhead. And the reason it's got to be is because they don't know what else to call it. And that's a product cost. Okay, now we have office salaries expense, and I need to draw your attention to the word office. Why are the people in the office? Because they don't know how to make whatever you're making. So that's a period cost. And that would be general and administrative. Raw materials purchased. Raw materials purchased, that is what goes into your product, and that would be direct materials. Now, this problem doesn't give you any, but there are times that you can have raw materials that are held out for overhead. And the easiest example of that is, imagine you're an automobile company. The paint that goes on a car is direct material. However, they may keep 5 gallons out for touch-up at the end. That would be overhead. Okay, rent expense. We have to take a look at office, selling, and factory. That's what we have to consider. So, rent expense for the office is an administrative expense. And I need to get my protractor because I'm starting to lose my lines here. So that's office space, and that's general and administrative. The next one is rent expense selling. That's also a period cost, an income statement cost, but that would be a selling expense. Now, rent expense factory building. What do we build in the factory? Our product. And that is overhead. Got to move it up a little bit. Got a few more we've got to talk about here. We have maintenance expense for the factory. Again, they're maintaining the equipment we build the stuff on. So that would have to count. And maintaining the factory expense, that would be overhead. So we're fixing the equipment that we make the product on, so it's a product expense, but it's overhead. And the salaries expense would be a period cost that goes right to the income statement, and it is a selling expense. Good exercise in how to quantify and characterize expenses. 14.2a.